Buying your first home. It's the dream purchase for many young Canadians. And TikTok star Joyee Yang was able to do it and able to do it young. In this episode, we'll see how she managed to save up for a down payment on a home through disciplined savings, budgeting, and investing. Whether you're saving for a home or another major financial goal, Joyee's story offers valuable insights and inspiration. You're watching Inside Investing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Inside Investing, the show that helps you level up your financial knowledge and sharpen your investing skills. I'm your host, Caitlin Cormier. Joining us today is Joyee Yang, who will share her personal journey of saving for a down payment on a home. Joyee, it's great to have you here back with us.
Thank you for having me again.
All right, Joyee, where do you think that this dream of buying a home came from? So, this is something that you had as a goal. Where did that come from?
I gotta say, in the Asian culture, buying a home is the goal for, I guess, family, right? Asian culture is all about family and fortune. And yeah, buying a home is one of the really big goals that my household has growing up as well. Um, and I also went out on my own when I was 19. So I really wanted like a safety place to be. I wanted my own home. I wanted to decorate it the way I wanted to. And so it was just, yeah, it was just calling to me.
Like a comfortable, safe space, something you can just call your own sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that lots of us can relate to that. Can relate to that sentiment for sure. Just a quick note to our viewers: subscribe to our YouTube channel, TD Direct Investing, so you don't miss an episode of Inside Investing. Make sure to let us know what you think about today's episode and what else you'd like us to cover on the show. All right, let's get into it. So, why was saving a down payment important for you?
Saving a down payment was important for me because that was kind of like my entryway to getting a home. Um, I wanted to have extra down payment money actually. So I know that a lot of people do 20%. I kind of did 25%. Land transfer fees, buying furniture, all of that. You don't think about it when you're buying a home, but it's, yeah, couches are expensive. So definitely have
It's
some more money saved up.
It's so true. I worked in banking for a long time, so I went through a lot of mortgage processes. And you're right, it's not just your down payment. There's so many other costs you don't think about, right? And obviously, with this being kind of a goal, was this sort of your first big financial goal that you had?
Well, the first big financial goal I had was actually buying a car because I remember I was doing 2 to 3 jobs since I was 19, and someone offered me a really good job opportunity outside of the city. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I can't do it. I need to buy a car. So actually, I have money already saved up. I think I needed like $5,000 more that time. But like at 19 years old, $5,000 was so much money. But I worked really hard, saved up a lot, budgeted, and then by the end of maybe like 3 to 4 months, I was able to get a car and I got the job. So that was like my first finance goal, I would say. And then I had little challenges here and there, like the $10,000 envelope challenge, where you take 10 envelopes, put $1,000 in each. And that was a challenge that I did as well. And then, yeah, it just jumped from car to condo.
Fair enough. It sounds like you're very financially conscious anyway. It's something it seems that's kind of built into your DNA a little bit. So saving for the down payment is relatively short term compared to retirement when we think about sort of the end, end of your career and kind of figuring out what you want to do with your life from there. So do your saving and investing methods have to be more extreme when you're saving for the down payment?
Yeah, luckily, I wasn't sure exactly when I wanted to purchase my home. I mean, I was just really hardcore budgeting and I just wanted to achieve that goal as soon as possible. So I did do some riskier investments like investing in dividend paying stocks, underlying bigger holding of my portfolio still was um, S&P 500 index fund. So I was being a little riskier, but still having the underlying, safer, I guess, more risk adverse ETFs. And retirement, I would say, is, yeah, a really, really long battle. I would say, automating your finances really helps with long-term goals because it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. As soon as your paycheck hits your bank account, allocate a percentage to investing. And, it's not just like for 2 years, I'm going to put money into the stock market. We don't want to do that when you're looking at retirement. A little bit goes a long way, especially with compound interest.
Absolutely, 100%. Those are such key things. Automating your savings, compounding, like starting young, starting early, all these things are so important for long term. So let's talk a little bit more specifically about timeline. So what timeline did you have in mind to save for the down payment? And then kind of with that, what sort of things did you do with that short timeline to kind of help you meet that big goal that you set for yourself? So what sort of kind of things did you do around that timeline to make sure that you could be successful?
Yeah, so when I was 19, the timeline that I set for myself, and when you're setting goals for yourself, it's kind of like, flexible. But
Moving
the
target.
goal I set for myself was 25 years old. So I wanted to be a homeowner at 25 or before 25. I actually reached that goal at 23. So that was super exciting. And when I had the goal of 25, that's around 6 years. At that point, when I was 19, I I guess kind of worked backwards. I wanted to get maybe like a $500,000 home at the time. And so 20% of that was $100,000. And so I divided that by however many months, 6 years is, and then kind of tried to save that much money when I was working. And that's why I had to get like the extra jobs. I had I had a serving job, a government job, a sales job at the gym, and yeah, so I did a lot. And I remember my 9 to 5 job would always be for my living expenses, and then saving for the down payment was the extra serving job that I have.
So not only working one job and saving money, you're actually picking up extra jobs on top of your 9 to 5
Oh
to
yeah.
kind of charge that savings. So you said you save 100% of the money from those extra jobs.
Exactly. I kept my living expenses super, super, super low. I rented a room with 3 other roommates, so the rent at that time was very, very cheap. And luckily for me, I worked at a restaurant, so I guess groceries and food wasn't too much of a challenge. So yeah, I used all the resources I could use and saved as much money as I can. And I know loud budgeting is a really big trend right now, but I've been doing it since 6 years ago. I told everybody what my goals are. I was like, I need to save this much money, I need to have this many shifts, and this is how much money I need to have saved by the end of this date. And when you tell people or when you loud budget, you really hold yourself accountable because, I don't want to be, embarrassed for not reaching my goals. And I wanted my friends, my family to be supportive.
Oh, I love that. No, holding yourself accountable is huge, especially when you're being so aggressive with things, right? You're being aggressive with these goals and obviously, making some sacrifices. So it has to kind of be worth it in
Mhm.
the end. So I love that accountability piece. So talking about, you said kind of the 6 year time frame was your original time frame. So it sounds like maybe you got there a little sooner than that. You kind of said instead of waiting till you're 25, you actually became a homeowner at 23. So can you tell me a little bit about kind of was it less than that and sort of what made it kind of a shorter time frame before you were able to purchase a home?
Well, I have a really good answer for this. I actually, like I said, worked backwards and thought about how much to save per month. And when I was thinking about how much to save per month, it was in cash. So I didn't know about the high interest savings accounts, the GICs, and investing. So I only started learning about investing at 19 years old. And so while I picked up more and more knowledge about investing vehicles, I was like, holy crap, my savings in the stock market or investing could get me there so much faster. And look, I mean, it cut 2 years off for me. So, yeah, I would say 6 year timeline, got it done in around 4.5. And that is because I learned investment vehicles. I got more familiar with financial literacy, watched so many YouTube videos, Googled so many things, and just stayed disciplined. The stock market is a means to help you grow your savings. And this is what I always say, you need to have savings first to grow, right? So, yeah, I put a lot of my side job money into the stock market, into these investment vehicles, and I just let compounding do its thing.
The timing of this was interesting with COVID, right? When you were kind of going through this whole education process and stuff like that.
So during COVID, that was again when I started being even more familiar with the stock market. And I remember March 18, 2020, the S&P 500 was down like double digit percentages. And I, for my first time experiencing a stock market crash, in my world anyway, I was like super freaked out. But again, went online, see what other people were saying, and they're saying, stocks are on sale, ETFs are on sale, you should buy. But I was super risk averse and like, I have no idea how long it takes for a stock market crash to bounce back. I had no idea about anything. So I did kind of, put a little bit of money into some dividend stocks, some ETFs, but I kind of didn't want to dabble too much into what looked risky to me. And I'm very sad for not, buying more when the stock market crashed. So that was kind of my reaction. So now, whenever, you know, there's a stock market crash or like good companies are on sale, I kind of try to push my emotions aside and just stick to the fundamentals of the companies. S&P 500 has always bounced back. So I almost like welcome stock market crashes now.
There's something about having that experience, but if you don't have it, if you haven't lived through, you haven't seen the cycles, it's really hard to convince yourself that when things are that down, that it's a good time to invest. So that completely makes sense. If we take the past into account, but COVID was, completely unprecedented. So we were all a little scared, right? Not knowing what's going on. So, and as far as the education piece too, you would have had maybe a little bit more. I mean, nobody had a social life unless it was online during COVID. So did that give you kind of more opportunity to kind of make research and education a part-time job?
Oh yeah, so while I was working in the restaurant, like they closed for a few months, and that's when got furloughed, laid off, and I spent 8 hours a day on YouTube just watching creators on YouTube, taking notes, Googling everything, and yeah, and there wasn't actually that many finance content creators during those times, especially not Canadian ones anyway. So I had to watch, the US ones and kind of just put the pieces together myself. And, but it was really helpful and it really did help me fast track my, I guess, education, informal education on finances.
I'm sure in the end it was worth it, even though you weren't getting paid to do that. It's the knowledge that you have will continue to pay dividends into the future, right? So dollars and cents. So what did it look like for you? What was a down payment goal? Like what was the dollar goal and how did you reach that?
Honestly speaking, I didn't have a specific dollar and dime and penny goal in my mind. I just tried saving as much money as I can. I calculated all of my necessities like rent, car payment, food, not even clothing. I did not buy any clothes for 6 years. So I was super, super frugal, hardcore budgeting. And I had a set number. I believe that number was around $1,500 for all of my necessities. And so I, every single time I get paid, I would put $1,500 into a checking account, and then everything else was just out of sight, out of mind for me. So I had to open another bank account to do that. And then after I got more knowledge about investment vehicles, I kind of had a huge chunk of money just sitting in a checking account and another account. I think I had around 30 to $40,000 just in a checking account. And so once I learned about all of these investment vehicles, I did the work. I kind of allocated some money here and there. Um, some did great, some didn't do great, but it was a good learning opportunity. Um, but yeah, I didn't have a clear dollar, dime, penny goal. It was just I lived below my means for so long and saved every penny and then learned everything I can to invest it.
So if you were to talk to somebody right now who's looking for a house, you talked about like 25%. Do you mean like you'd look around at houses that you're interested in and kind of get an idea of what the price range is and kind of work backwards from there?
Yeah, exactly. So the area, I mean, location, location, location. So area is always important to look at. Um, Whether you want a one bedroom or a one bedroom and den, the square footage, your needs, your wants in a house. Um, and so once I was kind of looking at the price range of a condo that I would want before I even hired an agent or anything like that. And so when you come up with a list of your wants, necessities, it's really easy for you to then, plug it into the filter on, a house searching platform and just go from there.
And then you said kind of you think maybe 20% for the down payment, the extra 5% for all the incidentals.
Yeah, like lawyer fees, furniture, land transfer fees. Yeah, so all of those things I didn't even like put into consideration. But yeah, I mean, it's always good to have an emergency fund anyway. So that really helped.
You talked about working multiple jobs, so that I wouldn't say that's necessarily very common. And especially, in the world we live in, there's so much to do with your spare time. We're constantly looking online. So where did that come from? Kind of your motivation to have those three jobs?
I started working at 16 years old, and I've always been a planner person, and so I will always have like a planner with me to like allocate my time every single day. And while I was 16, I didn't really do much. Like my dad was super strict, didn't let me out of the house for parties or like hanging out with friends or like dinners and stuff like that. And the only time he would let me leave the house is when I was working. So subconsciously, I wanted to leave the house, but I can only leave the house if I was working. And I loved working. Like, I love connecting with people. I did customer service jobs all the time. I really love people. I love working, being productive with my time. Um, and then, of course, having those goals in my mind is what the big motivator is.
So you kind of started out with that idea of, work being a good thing, work being a way to get you out of the house, communicate with people. The types of jobs that you took, you talked a little bit about serving and sales. Is there kind of a reason why you chose those specific types of jobs?
Honestly, serving was such a great, great, great side hustle or like part-time job for me because I get to talk to people every single day. I get to work with food. I am, making more than minimum wage when you're serving because you're collecting tips as well. And so serving was kind of the job that I got, thinking about the money first before the people. But I come to love the job, and I kept wanting to do it. And even now, I'm a full-time, content creator, entrepreneur. I was just telling my friend the other day that maybe I should pick up some serving shifts because I just miss it and it's like a hobby to me now. So being in the mentality of I really like what I do, waking up every day and saying how lucky I am to have a job is what's gonna help you, I guess, be happier and also, yeah, just enjoy your job.
Love it. Yeah. So I guess it's kind of like when, as hard as you work, hopefully you'll get the kind of a bigger return on it, sort of thing, as opposed to just having your straight kind of wage. If you work harder, you can maybe get a little bit of a better return on your work. that fair?
Mhm. Yeah, I looked at work as one, I guess, moneymaker, but second, hanging out with my coworkers, hanging out with my friends. So although it was really, really hard some days to wake up at, 7 in the morning and not come home till 11 p.m. at night, when I wake up the next day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear what this person, the story that she didn't get to finish yesterday. And like, I'm wondering if this customer will come back to the restaurant today. Sometimes you just have to enjoy the process.
Love it. If you enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work, right? You enjoy
Exactly.
going to it. That's great. Now, three jobs is a lot. So obviously, like you said, 9 to 5 plus the extra. So it sounds like you probably were working almost pretty much straight. Did you feel like you were missing out when you were doing this and you were living so frugally, putting, just taking the bare minimum, not purchasing clothes or anything like that over that period of time? Did you feel like you were missing out?
Absolutely. I mean, Instagram was it was like in your face, Snapchat, TikTok. I was definitely feeling left out. And I know a lot of people have the mentality of money will come back, but I will never be 19 again, dancing in Portugal or something with my friends. And like that sometimes hits me, but then I also realize that even when I'm 30 years old and hopefully financially stable, I will still want to go dancing with my friends in Portugal. And I would still want to enjoy these things. I don't know where people got the idea that, once you turn 30 or like once you're older, you're not going to have time or want to do these things. And that's just not true. I mean, the reason why I want to be financially stable in the first place is to enjoy moments like this. So if I'm 19 years old or 20 years old going to Portugal, I'm going to wonder if I should get this drink. I'm going to wonder if I can afford this. I'm going to stress about, oh no, like I need to work extra hard or pick up extra shifts because I had this dinner. Whereas, now being 25, I was in Portugal and I'm, gonna get a drink, gonna get an appetizer, and I'm going to enjoy this. And knowing that, I have a safety net, and that is what money is supposed to do for you, or for me anyway, is to really enjoy life.
Yeah, I love that. So then kind of taking it all into consideration, were the sacrifices that you made worth it in the end?
I felt ups and downs during the 6 years, but ultimately, now I would say absolutely so worth it. I didn't have a lot of friends when didn't have a lot of friends when I bought the condo, didn't have that many people to celebrate with, but it was a good achievement for myself, and only the people who were closest to me that knew my goals were there to celebrate. And so that made me really happy. And so yeah, the sacrifices were super worth it.
How did you approach budgeting? Let's talk more about this. So did you have like a formal budget? I know you said like 1500, but like, how do you know how much money you're going to need? How do we figure out that budget that we're going to be able to live on?
You just have to be realistic with yourself and reality check. You actually don't need that streaming service subscription. You actually don't need to buy the most expensive shampoos. You don't need to buy the most expensive perfume, things like that. And so I really, when I got kicked out at 19, sat down with myself and wrote down exactly what I needed, and I just had tunnel vision from there on out. There, of course, have been some slip ups. I will get, a latte here and there, but ultimately, like I said before, budgeting is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle change.
At the beginning, when you were doing kind of your more hardcore savings, you were really keeping track of stuff. You were maybe taking advantage of eating at work, um, saving food money and kind of, really specifically saying, this is how much money I need for X, Y, and Z. This is how much I can spend on this, that, and the next thing. So during that saving phase, would you say that it was kind of more like specific? You really tracked everything?
Yeah, so I used all of the resources I could get in my job. So working out was really important to me. So thank God I had like a sales job at the gym, free membership, definitely a plus. Again, the restaurant, 50% off food, or I would just go to the grocery store and cook in the restaurant or get the chefs to prep something for me. And when I say that I was like listing out the necessities, coffee was not in there. So I only drank coffee when I was at the restaurant where they, have free coffee for the servers. Energy drinks were not a thing. And the craziest thing I remember is servers have notepads and we get them at the dollar store, right? I didn't even want to buy that. Did not want to spend $1 on notepads. So I started memorizing all the orders. So,
Wow.
I was hardcore budgeting for, yeah, a long time.
So it sounds like, you kind of really implemented some of this stuff, but then has it kind of made a discipline in you? Do you have to think about it anymore or
So no. So after hardcore budgeting for 6 years, that was a whole phase. I've kind of now transitioned into the intuitive spending phase where now I trust myself enough that when I walk out of the house, I'm not going to buy unnecessary things and materialistic things. I'm very happy being a minimalist. I only have, one luxury bag, and it was a gift from my mom. I have like 3 pairs of shoes, running shoes, boots, and slippers for the beach or something. Yeah, so right now, whenever I go out, it's just intuitive. I don't really have to look at a budget and see if I could spend, $12 on this latte. I just know in the back of my mind that I am not going to spend as much as I make.
we've talked about the saving, we've talked about budgeting, putting money aside. So let's talk a little bit about the investing piece. So can you tell me, what your approach to investing was? That, how often you invested, what types of investments you were looking for?
I was just starting out investing when I was 19 years old. And so I was really, really risk adverse, but I did get into dividend stocks very quickly. I Googled at 19 years old how to make money or passive income online, and dividend stocks came up. So that's what I kind of dove into first. Didn't know anything about ETFs, didn't know anything about anything else, just dividend stocks. And so I did a lot of research on that, which I would not recommend now for beginner investors unless it is a dividend paying ETF, maybe. And an ETF is essentially just a basket of different stocks for anyone who doesn't know. But yeah, just making sure I didn't put all of my money into one company and then just making sure to diversify my portfolio. I learned that later on. But I did learn early on to reinvest my dividends to let the compounding work. And I was super, super happy about that because some people, or like my friends now, or when I converse with my followers, they would take the dividend payment out and like, buy a coffee or something. And that's just not what we want to do, especially long term. You want to build that dividend snowball, you want to let the compounding work. So my dividend or my investing strategy was dividends at first, although maybe it shouldn't have been, but slowly getting into ETFs. And then really, at that time, I was investing $300 a month into the S&P 500. That was kind of like a bill for me. I had to do it. I had to pay myself first. And then I guess any extra money that I had, I would put it into maybe a dividend stock that was low on the month. And then at the emergency funds, I would put in a high interest savings account.
All right. So you said you're not kind of picking stocks necessarily anymore. You're more into ETFs. But if somebody did want to look at picking individual stocks, do you have any insights as to the things that they can look for in an investment?
Yes, of course. So when I was looking at stocks, when I was 19, I really looked at, I guess, what you would call blue chip stocks, stocks that have a bigger market cap, that are more structured companies, big companies, and of course, stocks that or brands that you already use and you already love. That's what I would kind of look into is brands that I already use and love. They're already a structured company, great CEOs, and a company that you really believe will be here in the next 5, 10, 50 years.
I love that when you say like one that you're already familiar with, because if you use their products, hopefully lots of people use their products and then you at least have a bit of an idea about the business. You trust them enough to use them. So hopefully that means something good about the company. Is that kind of the idea?
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you want to, I see this brand here all the time and like, people use them all the time. It might be, worth looking into.
And I just want to clarify. So when you say you maybe shouldn't have done the dividend stocks, do you mean because of diversification that you were kind of focusing on individual companies? Is that what you mean?
Again, don't want to put all of your money into one company. And second, I was only a beginner investor. So if I didn't have more time to look into the fundamentals of stocks, or like if I didn't know how to read finance sheets of a company, I mean, beginner investors really shouldn't invest in a company, just because other influencers are investing in it. And so that's what I mean when I said, beginner investors probably don't know how to analyze a company properly, like me at 19 probably didn't. Um, yeah, so that's what I meant.
I love how much you talk about paying yourself and paying yourself as a bill. I think that's such a key part of it. And you've talked about like dividend snowball and as well like automating savings. Are those things that are really important to you?
Those things are super, super important for me. It was seriously a game changer when I was automating my investments and building those finance habits. What I learned from managing my own money for so long is that it gets easier. It, like any skill in life, it gets so much easier. You feel safer, you feel like you're doing something correctly, and it's just again out of sight, out of mind when you automate investments. And then, a few months later when you're just like, oh my gosh, wonder what my stocks are at, or like wonder how much, money I have. And you look and you're like, holy crap, amazing. And then you just want to keep going.
All right, we're going to have to leave our conversation there, Joy. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and the valuable strategies for saving, budgeting, and investing. Our viewers can now consider these tips with all the information they need. Now, are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave our viewers with?
Start investing early, let the compound interest work, really sit yourself down, ask yourself what you need, what you don't need, and learn about what compound interest is because it will do wonders for you.
I love that. Those are all great tips. Thanks again for joining us. And for those in our audience, make sure to check out our full lineup of educational content. We have instructional videos, interactive masterclasses, and of course, more live webinars. Register now to continue your learning journey. Until then, see you all next time. Have more questions? Check out the links to the right and in the description below.